볼 건데
Good afternoon. Let us begin the insurance session of FSS Speaks 2021. This is Kim Hyun-jin from the International Affairs Department, and I'm going to be the MC for today's event. As you're aware, this year's FSS Speaks will be broadcasted online due to the ongoing COVID-19. And we'd like to notify that we're fully complying with the disease prevention guidance in organizing today's event. And please also be noted that English interpretation will be provided on the English channel. I'd like to thank you all deeply for taking part in today's event. We'll begin the event with a keynote speech of Governor Seok-Hun Yoon of the FSS.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to speak to you as we open FSS Speaks 2021. First of all, I'd like to extend my warm welcome to distinguished guest presenters and other participants joining us today. As you may notice, now is the second time we are hosting this event online following last year's first ever on-tech FSS Speaks. Given the persisting difficulties posed by COVID-19, I believe continued communication between the FSS and foreign financial companies has become more meaningful than ever before. As more vaccines are deployed worldwide in recent days, both the OECD and the IMF are making upward revisions to the growth rates of the Korean economy along with the global economy. Certainly, this has boosted high hopes for economic normalization in Korea and worldwide. However, while we look forward to a better future, we must bear in mind that our end goal should not be to return to normal, but to recover into a greener, more inclusive, and more resilient economy. To this end, we need to pursue a wide range of policy goals, such as addressing inequality, setting new targets on issues like ESG, and discovering new growth engines. Among those overarching goals, tapping into emerging industries like digital and green sectors is gaining worldwide attention because they are believed to be the main drivers of economic growth going forward. Under the circumstances, I believe Korea stands at a critical juncture in her path towards the so-called Great Reallocation, which is to devote more resources to new growth engines. And finance, indeed, serves as the very heart of this change. This is because, as you may all agree, the fundamental role of finance is to effectively allocate resources among industries with high growth potential and thereby invigorate the real economy. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, while I do realize that such roles and responsibilities may be daunting, I ask all of you to play a key role and share insights among ourselves along the way. Once Korea keeps on innovating her industrial and economic structures, I'm sure she could soon play a leading role for the green economy by making use of her renowned position as a digital powerhouse. And in an economy where innovation sprouts and productivity blossoms, foreign financial companies will naturally enjoy plenty of opportunities in return. So, I want all of you to join Korea in this journey to a mutual growth. I look forward to a fruitful.
Thank you for your attention. Before we begin the main session, I'll briefly explain how today's event will be run. Today's event will last for about an hour and 10 minutes, starting with the presentation on the Insurance Supervision and Examination Direction, which is going to be followed by a Q&A session. We will take questions through written comments, and we look forward to your active participation as we'd like to answer to as many questions as possible. When leaving comments, please identify your name, company name, and position. Now, let us begin the presentation. Please welcome Director General Hae-Wan Yang of the Insurance Supervision Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Yang Hae-Wan, Director General of Insurance Supervision Department. We wanted to have face-to-face meeting to communicate with all of you, but due to the pandemic spread, we're holding this event on online forum. And I hope today's event will be a fruitful one. And let me start with introducing the Insurance Supervision and Examination Direction. Today's session starts with domestic and overseas financial market condition, and Korea's insurance industry overview, and moves on to supervision and examination directions. And Q&A session will also follow. So first, the financial market condition at home and abroad. On the global level, international organizations, including the IMF, project growth rebound in many countries. However, concerns for inflation from expansionary monetary policies around the world can possibly raise long-term interest rates. Excessive liquidity and rising debt issues are also lingering as market risks. On the domestic market, Korea's growth rate projection hovers over 3% following recovery in export and manufacturing. Meanwhile, prolonged pandemic is aggravating household income, unemployment rate to deepen polarization, and accumulated household debt and excessive liquidity still remain as risk factors. Second, let's take a look at Korea's insurance industry. Last year, we expected that the pandemic development will blow the Korean economic market seriously. However, Korean insurance industry survived. Last year, despite concerns about the market saturation and pandemic-led sluggish growth, both the total asset and premium increased by 6.6% and 4.3% respectively, showing that we can call this a low-activity recession growth trend. In terms of profitability, while low interest rate reduced investment operation profit, loss ratio showed improvement in a pandemic situation and consequently increased net income by 13.9% to 6.1 trillion won. For stability and soundness, RBC ratio also remained stable. Now let's take a look at the industry condition with surrounding risk factors. The first one is increasing uncertainty. In a already volatile market from COVID-19, increasing risk of asset loss from overseas alternative investment and possible unveiling of potential risk after pandemic are deeply intensifying market volatility. The second risk is changing regulatory environment. Newly implemented Financial Consumer Protection Act and scheduled introduction of RFRS 17 and KICS in 2023 are changing the regulatory landscape. Third, changing demographics from low birth rate and aging population along with market saturation intensify business competition. And less chances for face-to-face sales and separating sales unit are also changing the environment. Last risk factor lies in big techs and online platform providers holding bigger influence in this insurance market. And rapid digitalization, utilizing AI and insurtech, all this trend can bring in concern of regulatory blind spot. The industry and the financial authority together need to preemptively respond to these various risks. Based on these market condition, industry environment, and risk factors, the FSS has set this year's supervision and examination direction in line with overall principles for all sectors. Facing challenges from COVID-19, low growth rate, aging population, and accelerating digitalization, we set up the supervision direction for 2021 to be insurance overcoming challenges with people. And we have set 4 core principles of stability, fairness, inclusion, and innovations. And now I'd like to introduce these 4 principles one by one with detailed goals for each. The first one is stability. Supportive measures to overcome COVID-19 crisis requires the cooperation between the industry and the authorities. The FSS has temporarily relaxed RIA's liquidity requirement and in-person sales ban, while promoting impunity right for credit managers to support financing small businesses. In line with this, we ask the insurers to actively support to overcome the pandemic with measures such as maturity extension and differing interest for small businesses and differing premiums for damaged businesses and prohibiting unfair denial. Second, preemptive and tailored responses to potential risks. For early detection of potential risks, we're planning stress tests by different scenarios of interest rate, exchange rate, and stock price, and concentrate our supervision capabilities to companies revealed to be vulnerable from the past test. As high-risk assets including overseas alternative investment increase, we will conduct tailored monitoring for different types and risk levels of assets. We are also planning to tighten the examination on recognizing impairment loss of securities and forward-looking criteria, and introduce new assessment criteria for PF-related risks. The third detailed goal is enhancing regulatory system consistency with global standards. To be better prepared for RFRS 17 introduction, the FSS will work with the FSC to revise related regulations and come up with standardized process and evaluation schemes for appointed actuaries to strengthen their accountabilities. As a groundwork for KIC's introduction, we will finalize the standard to reflect domestic industry characteristics and more frequently conduct assessment and overall RIAs in line with KIC's. For a newly introduced external verification system for liability reserve, detailed standard will be prepared with specified criteria for LAT discount rate calculation. Let's move on to the second core principle, fairness. And we have 2 detailed goals: responsible selling and sound management, and fairer insurance plans and proceeds. Let me start with the first detailed goal, the responsible selling and soundness management. To actively support the full-scale introduction of the Financial Consumer Protection Act, we will come up with checklists and permanent response team and develop relevant education programs. Regarding recruitment fee, we encourage soft landing of so-called 1,200% rule that limits recruitment fee for the first year, as well as differentiated recruitment fees that reflect mis-selling ratio or retention rate. Meanwhile, in an effort to strengthen accountability of GAs, we will reinforce their internal control system and introduce anti-avoidance measures to enforcement actions and set up best practices for insurers. And lastly, We will spare no effort to improve short-termism among insurers by extending compensation deferring period for management and disclosing performance-based assessment system results. The second goal is to improve fairness in insurance plans and proceeds, and will induce developing sound and competitive insurance plans without possible consumer danger. In this respect, we will ratchet up our supervision effort to prevent possible mis-sellings of foreign currency and non or low surrender value plans and improve policy conditions. The claim adjustment system, which lost consumer confidence during previous issues of so-called self-adjustment, will limit the use of performance indicators that induce insurance proceeds cut and introduce duty to explain the adjustment standards and results to customers. Also, in order to improve fairness in controversial medical advisory system, Medical Opinion Advisory Committee needs to be established among insurers, and damage relief system will be reinforced to allow consumers to ask for third-party advice. The third core principle is inclusion. The detailed goals for inclusion starts with consumer-friendly insurance. Inclusion not only means more accessible insurance for consumers, but also means creating a ground for inclusive growth. To this end, the FSS will discover and improve unfavorable policy conditions to consumers and support developing more relatable plans. We will spare no effort to make insurance more inclusive and better prepared for super-aged society by promoting insurance plans for the elderly and support developing specified insurance plans. Promoting ESG in business and investment is another goal for us, and we will support productive finance by adjusting risk coefficients in RBC and also introduce qualitative criteria for management assessment. The second detailed goal lies with the automobile insurance and indemnity health insurance. And we will reinforce the role of popular insurances as a stronger social safety net and improve this current system where proceeds are concentrated to some particular holders while most policyholders face heavier premium. Regarding automobile insurance, we will rationalize medical expenses payment standards for minor auto accidents, introduce measures to reduce repairing costs, and remove unfair elements in lost earnings calculation. We will also analyze the indemnity health insurance schemes to prevent unnecessary increase of non-benefit insurance. And in preparation for Indemnity Health Insurance 4.0, we will revise standard policy condition and alleviate requirements to switch between policies to reduce blind spots of insurance coverage.
And the fourth supervisory goal is innovation. In an era where the on-tech communication and digital transformation is rising in response to COVID-19, innovation is necessary, not optional. To keep up with these trends, The FSS will improve our supervisory system by allowing platform providers to enter insurance market, overhaul business regulations to prevent regulatory gap. At the same time, we are going to provide a clear guideline for online insurance businesses to distinguish between solicitation and the advertisement. We'll also allow for the use of new technologies like AI and TTS, as well as hybrid type of solicitation that explains products via phone and takes subscription via mobile, and on-tech sales channels using video calls and chatbots and other type of methods. Moving on, we'll actively support discovering new markets to lay foundation for sustainable growth. To this end, we'll tap into new business areas, including healthcare or small sum and short-term insurance businesses. In addition, we'll support innovative insurance plans utilizing new technologies like autonomous cars and establish legal guidelines to promote healthcare insurance plans. And to facilitate insurance companies expanding overseas and making active investment, we are going to respond to the National Eligibility Assessment for Reinsurance and promptly approve FDIs within the bounds of the law. Now, I'm going to move on to page 20, and I'd like to move on to explain the examination direction for insurance companies. Of course, this should be dealt with by the Director General of the Examination Director General, but I am going to take his place just for today. And the first examination direction is on the basic principles in 2021. The two main supervisory goals for the FSS is to protect consumer interest and enhance soundness of insurance companies. To that end, we're going to promote an incentive-compatible examination, establish a preemptive response system against potential risks. As well, we're going to aim to rebuild trust by rooting out practices that undermines consumer protection and strictly respond to unfair business practices of GAs, while also enhancing the self-correcting capabilities of insurance companies. Now, I'll explain these major goals in detail. First, the FSS will incorporate our supervisory goals into choosing the theme and method for examination and thus promote incentive-compatible examination. For this, we're going to carry out an incentive-compatible examination in consideration of the key risk in the market, conduct partial examination on alternative investment and liability reserve, and tightly monitor factors that hinder soundness of insurance companies, all of which will support the recovery of the financial system. At the same time, we will check whether Social Security for the elderly, such as the representative claiming system for dementia insurance, properly works, and examine the adequacy of underwriting criteria for high-risk jobs and particular jobs in order to pursue an inclusive finance and a fair market order. And to keep pace with acceleration of digitization, we'll utilize the recording analysis system in examining telemarketing channels. And at the same time, we will improve relevant systems in order to enhance our analysis capability. Moreover, we'll strengthen our examination capacity for digital innovation by preventing consumer damages from big techs and other platform providers. Secondly, in response to rapidly changing financial environment, including prolonged COVID-19 and the implementation of the new law, we are going to make sure to secure enough loss-absorbing capacity to prepare for potential risks. To capture potential risk in advance, we will strengthen pre-inspection on risk factors such as investment loss of high-risk assets, while cooperating actively with relevant associations and insurance companies to establish a market monitoring system. As well, we'll inspect self-recovery plans of companies with potential risk, such as those who are rated poorly in the supervisory evaluation, and intensify off-site monitoring of companies with deteriorating RBC. In particular, we will check the adequacy of liability reserve evaluation system, which has been revised in preparation for IFRS 17 in order to continue monitoring on financially weak companies. Furthermore, we'll make sure that the incoming regulations following the Financial Consumer Protection Act settle successfully and encourage insurers to have a self-examination system through establishing internal audit consultation. Moving on to page 24, we're going to root out unfair business practices that undermines consumer right so as to restore confidence within the insurance market. To achieve this, we will inspect the compliance of principles on premium calculation and tighten monitoring on products that can trigger moral hazard or damage consumer rights and interests. We also plan to look into sales of products that can incur consumer damage, such as policies in foreign currency or policies with no or low surrender value, and will scrutinize whether there is an adequate internal control system in the sales process. And as the society is calling for a transparent payment of insurance proceeds, we plan to monitor tightly whether consumers properly get information on the right to appoint claim adjustment and medical advice, while looking thoroughly into the internal control system of claim adjustment companies. Fourth, we're going to reinforce inspection on GAs to establish a well-functioning consumer protection system and thus to promote qualitative growth of the insurance market. For this to happen, we'll continuously carry out examinations that look into the overall business operation, including the management and internal control, and inspect unfair practices like policy replacement. And as there are increasing cases of sales through television channels, we plan to inspect this area in priority and take strict measures and actions when necessary. We'll also strengthen examination on brokerage firms to eliminate any blind spots and to establish ongoing monitoring system and carry out detailed examinations to eradicate unfair business practices of insurance brokerage firms. Lastly, it is essential that insurance companies establish a strong internal control system that can identify risk factors in advance to rebuild trust within the industry. Thus, the FSS will support insurance companies strengthen their internal control system and improve the self-correcting capability by setting up the Compliance Officers Council for the insurance industry and share relevant information with one another. And to make an effective internal audit consultation system, will allow companies to process matters dealt with by the internal audit consultation on their own and prioritize companies with weak internal control in conducting examination. Moreover, we'll build various channels of communication such as internal control workshop and other measures. And there has been strengthened duty imposed by insurance companies with the implementation of Financial Consumer Protection Act. As you know, consumer trust is the very foundation of sustainable growth of the insurance industry. And to preemptively overcome the national crisis of COVID-19 and restore consumer trust into the insurance market, both the supervisory authority and companies should make every effort together. The FSS promises we'll commit ourselves to listening to the voices of the market players and consumers. Thank you.
네, 이상으로 보험부
This closes the presentation for examination and supervision direction for the sector. Now let's move on to the Q&A session. We have gathered some of the major questions that were posted during the session. The first one is that the ESG management is garnering global attention, and is there any relevant supervision direction? This is a subject that was slightly mentioned during the presentation. As you are well aware of, many countries around the world and many organizations are paying attention to ESG. And this is the same with Korean industries as well as financial institutions. And the insurance sector has held a declaration ceremony last February. The FSS agrees that the ESG is one of the important supervisory objectives and plans to support ESG management and investment of insurance companies. As stated earlier, we're working on lowering the RBC risk coefficient and introducing non-quantitative criteria for management assessment.
Thank you for your answer, Director General. Now we're going to move on to the second question. How do you select companies subject to comprehensive examination? And I think this would be the question that many companies are interested in. Let's listen from the Director General. Well, I believe that the Director General of the Examination Department should be in charge, but I personally was in charge of the Examination Department last year, so I'm going to elaborate on this. In principle, we are conducting incentive compatible examination by the FSS. This means that we are going to consider strengths points of the insurance companies in conducting comprehensive examination. And we take all those factors into consideration while carrying out examination. It means we consider consumer protection level, financial soundness. That includes all the factors that can point out how financially sound the company is into consideration. Financial soundness is the very foundation of the existence of a financial company, so this is a core issue that we consider. At the same time, we also take into consideration the internal control level of the company because this too is a very important factor. And for more detailed examination criteria, please refer to our press release. And we're going to guide you to this press release material in charge. For this year, we are planning to conduct examination on 2 life and 2 non-life insurance companies.
Thank you for your answer, and let's move on to the third question. The FSS has mentioned to support overseas advancement for insurers, and what are some supportive measures? The overseas advancement is one of our important objectives for FSS. So supporting overseas advancement and establishing the financial hub in Korea is very important for us. And attracting foreign insurance companies into Korea is also very important for us. And we are making plans to cover these two goals at the same time. And we have 53 financial institutions. And two among them, 26 companies. We have a differentiated strategy to reach for these companies. And the direct investment toward Korea has been one of our supportive goals. And if you have anything to say or need any additional measures to boost this function, please let us know. And you can reach our relevant departments. And as you are aware of, we have other departments at the FSS. Besides the insurance department, we have Financial Health Korea team, support team, and we have other overseas offices globally. So if you have any questions or opinion about the authorization process, please let us know.
Let's move on to the fourth question, and it's about the following. What's your future examination plan regarding implementation of Financial Consumer Protection Act? I believe that there will be new regulations coming in, so please elaborate on this. One of the biggest risks for the insurance company is as follows. The new act has been implemented on March 25th, and the rest will be implemented this September. And with the implementation of the new law, we are going to grant 6 months of grace period for insurance companies. But we also have to take note of the following. The operational regulations stipulated by law has been transferred from the Insurance Act to the Consumer Protection Act. So this is not a whole new regulation. This has been existed in the Insurance Act in the past as well. So in case of the violation of the law, we are going to tightly manage, even if we grant grace period for the insurance companies. Please be noted that all these violations of the law will have to be complied by the law. Thank you.
감사합니다.
Thank you for your answer. And let's move on to the last question. The question goes, what are the reasons and plans for strengthening supervision on foreign currency insurance plans? As we have read from the media coverage, and we are hearing some opinions and questions from the insurers about this issue. The basic principle is that when Korean people needs to be prevented from being damaged with these insurance plans. And foreign currency insurance has a structure that the policyholders can be vulnerable to possible damages because the exchange rate fluctuation is transferred to the consumer until the termination and expiration of the policy. Because of this structure, the financial consumers can be damaged, possibly, and in particular, if long-term life insurance plan, which already has mis-selling issues, The foreign currency insurance, if sold in a long-term plans, serious consumer damages may occur. So our basic principle is to prevent any consumer damage in advance. And before revising and making any regulation, we are fully open to listen to the insurers and opinions from everywhere, which includes the consumer groups and the professionals and the insurance companies as well, so that we are making regulations to satisfy all aspects of the society.
Thank you for your answers. I believe that we answered all the questions that we received during the presentation. For any of you who would like to raise question after this session, please email to us on our official Financial Hub website. Once you send us the question, we'll deliver it to the department in charge. So let us wrap up the Q&A and presentation session of the insurance part. This is the end of the insurance session of FSS Speaks 2021. Thank you all for watching.
Oops.